Howdy, Hot Shots, Dividend Daddy here, your favorite not a financial advisor with not financial advice. All right, well, you guys know that I'm a huge fan of Alti, but that's not the only holding that I have. I'm going to go over one of my favorite holdings with you here today and one that I added to just this morning. We all know that inflation has been rampant. In fact, I'll get my trusty flowery notebook here. In 2024, they said it was 3.1%. Now, I don't know if you believe that, but I don't believe those numbers at all. The CPI is manipulated, in my opinion. They will replace items with smaller items or with alternative items, claiming that people just prefer the new items over the old, even though really it's that they can't afford the old. For instance, maybe they take ground beef and they replace it with chicken breast. Well, that's just an example, but they'll do something like that and say people prefer chicken breast now. Well, no, they can't afford ground beef. Now, I was just getting ground beef a couple months ago all the time for $3.99 a pound. Can't find it any cheaper than $5 a pound now, and that's just a few months. Food prices have skyrocketed. Fast food workers are making $20 an hour in some places. You go into McDonald's to get a double cheeseburger meal and it's like $14. That used to be the worst thing you could get there. It was like $6 for a combo. So needless to say, we don't eat out much because it's too expensive. You got to leave a tip on top of it and everything. It's just not worth it. I can get better quality food faster and cleaner at home than I can eating out. But one of these, what this tells me is that inflation is rampant, which means that every dollar that you have in the bank is losing value. It's a hidden tax. They're stealing your savings from you, making people who choose to live responsibly the losers in society. But what it also means is that the value of hard goods or precious metals goes up over time in order to match that inflation and hold its value. So I have had a fund. If you want to go buy silver and go buy gold and store it under your mattress, that's fine, but it's not going to earn you any money. It's just a wealth preservation tool, so far as I can tell. It doesn't really go up more than inflation over time, okay? And if it does, it reverts back to the mean. It obviously has its own market cycle, so it goes up and down, but eventually it's a wealth preservation tactic. What we want to do is earn an income while we have our assets increase in value. Now, I don't know about you, but it's kind of hard to think of how I could make an income off of some precious metal that will just sit there. So I've owned a GDXY, which is a gold miners ETF, for several years now, and it's performed quite nicely for me. Not as well as tech stocks, but overall, but it has performed nicely for me. And so I was excited when I found GDXY, okay? GDXY is the high yield version of GDX, the gold miners ETF. It's from Yieldmax. It's the gold miners, let's see, it's got a long name here. Yieldmax Gold Miners Option Income Strategy ETF. But it's got a distribution rate of 27.84%, okay? So I can buy GDXY and get tangential exposure to GDX, all while spinning off an income. So I have a lot of faith in the idea that over time gold is going to go up. That doesn't necessarily correlate to the gold miners going up directly, because they still have added costs, and sometimes they're producing more, sometimes they're producing less, sometimes the market is demanding more, and sometimes the market is demanding less. So gold miners don't necessarily go up directly correlated to the price of gold. But in my opinion, they will go up over time because they're producing something that is going up in value over time. So they can increase their margins over time. They constantly have a need for their product, and they have holdings in the ground which have a value that is consistently going up. So I like gold miners. And so now I can get exposure to the gold miners and still get an income spinning off of them. So the distribution rate on GDXY is 27.84%. And in the last 5 days, I've watched it grow by 90 cents a share. Now, I still bought some shares, even though I'm in the green on the shares I already had, because I am in the accumulation phase. But 27.84% doesn't match Alti, doesn't match Yieldmax or Misty, but I like to be diversified. And so I have some of this as well. And at some point in time, I could see this possibly being one of my largest holdings, because 27.84% is definitely a respectable distribution rate. And with the M2 money supply reaching a record high of 22 trillion in June, and inflation just constantly getting higher and higher, even if the Fed has a target inflation rate of 2%. So their goal isn't even to stop inflation, it's just to slow it down. So you can almost guarantee that with very few exceptions, there's always going to be inflation. We could go through a short deflationary period, but as far as I could tell, that's when the Fed will bring out helicopter money and give free loans to banks and bail everybody out. So inflation is here to stay. It's been there since we came off the gold standard, and it's gonna be there until the dollar is wiped from the face of the earth. Okay, anytime there is a currency that doesn't have it's a fiat currency, so it doesn't have a basis for its price. It doesn't have anything backing it except for the full faith and credit of the government that issued it. We're going to have inflation. It's a hidden tax. I don't think it's a good idea for them to have a targeted inflation goal, because I don't think they should be trying to steal money from people. But all we can do is try to profit from that and try to keep ourselves from falling behind. And one of the tools that I'm using to do that is that GDXY, so I can not only fight inflation, but spin an income off of it while it's there. Let me know down below if you hold any GDXY and what you think of it.